and none of what I just said is true. In case.
I'm noticing the ceiling tiles are doing the texture, doing the jumping around.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You can see as we go a number of weird visual artifacts from the texture mapper. A lot of which just had to do with the kinds of optimizations and shortcuts you had to do in those days to do texture mapping on the CPU in the first place. Way before any specialized graphics hardware. So where are we now? We're clearly somewhere in the basement, but we're not. But not. All right. So this is not the sewers entrance, though. Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah. I was letting myself wander from what was going on for a moment.
So Dorian, do you remember the layout of the basement?
No.
No.
That was a long time ago.
It was only 20 years ago.
Oh, it's
Yeah, so my
more than
my
that.
memory
20
only
play.
goes back about 6 months. So.
So what? After not being fired, what did you?
First,
Yep.
the first thing that I did was I was sat down at the editor. Well, actually, the first thing was I was sat down to play Underworld 1 for a while, to get a sense of what Underworld games kind of looked and felt like, because I had played and watched other people play on Underworld 1 a bit, where we all oohed and awed over this impossible technology. But I was basically spent my first week of work playing Underworld 1, and if you don't think that a 22-year-old kid whose first job consists of playing a video game for a week doesn't think he has landed in the biggest pile of heaven you could possibly imagine. And then after that, I was shown the tile editor and told to practice with the tile editor, making just whatever practice spaces I wanted, and I did that for about a week. And then I was told that I was tasked with building the sewers. So I did that. That was my inauguration to the wonderful world of video game design.
And how did creating, doing design at that compare to more recent game design you have done?
Well, the fact that I was able to do it at all, I mean, that a designer was basically tasked with building out play spaces to that degree, was certainly different. I mean, in later years, as level design became more and more of an artistic endeavor, I became less and less qualified to do it. So I slowly became a more numbers and spreadsheets oriented game mechanic. So in my later years of game design, I didn't build any levels. I concerned myself with game systems and balancing numbers and difficulty levels and things of that sort.
That's a good point. A lot of people today might not realize, but a great deal of the work building these spaces, did not have artists directly involved. Right? They would do the textures and such, and there'd be art direction that informed the style of things, but the tile map editor really would have been ashamed to put an artist in front of them, because they would have had very little to work with.
Yeah.
It really is, these days you might start one of these processes by just blocking out the general shape of a level, and that's really the entire description of an Unreal level. It's blocks.
Yep. So basically, I was playing with a very advanced, paint program, pretty much, and imagining what the gameplay experience would be like, and building stuff and playing and seeing how it felt. Ooh, right. We didn't really have seams between textures, and I noticed there was one of our mandates was to try to avoid having outside corners with different textures on the two different walls.
And you just
Right.
saw them. I saw it.
Yeah, you can see them if
Right.
you. It isn't.
Every once in a while, it was unavoidable. So.
Yeah, it isn't always possible
Right
in
there.
this engine to do it right. But yeah, that.
Yeah.
sort of gives away that it is not like a single block of material when it's one
Right.
material on one side and a different material on another side.
Exactly. We just had a palette of textures, and one texture would go on one wall section, and that was the extent of what you could do.
Yeah.
So I can see that you guys had animated textures. What's really surprising as somebody who was not a game designer at this time, but was an avid player, the 3D models in the world just that kind of blows my mind for that for that era. I was a big Doom player, and Doom had no 3D anything going on. So just seeing a 3D table in this kind of an engine, that leaps and bounds of what anybody else was doing at the time.
I think the 3D modeled picture frames are there just to prove a point. Because really, that's not necessary at all.
So I think Will's lost. Will, where are we?
We're still in the castle.
That's
Yes.
Not very descriptive in his telling me where the entrance to the basement is.
uh-oh.
When I found it before, it was through a secret wall.
That's like the joke about like the guy who's in a hot air balloon and he falls asleep, right? Wakes up and he doesn't know where he is and calls to someone passing by below going, "Where am I?" And the guy, who of course is a New Englander, responds, "You're in a balloon." Damn fool! What do you think you are?
Well, somewhere out
We're
here
in
is
the
the door
we're in
with
the
button
castle,
on the
okay.
side.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said somewhere is the door with the rat on the other side. Isn't that kind of the gateway into the,
Right, you
the
can always
actual the dungeons proper?
yeah, you can always tell you're making progress if you're swimming upstream against danger. Just find something that's trying to kill you and you're on the way. Yeah, you want to just jump into the save game?
Yeah, I can do that. It's I just
Imagine-
did this castle 2 days ago, and I don't remember where.
Imagine that Will finds his way into the sewers.
And here we go. The cool thing about doing Twitches is that I can see 15 seconds into the future.
No, it's like having mind powers. You know what's going to
Ah,
happen
there we
before
go.
you do.
Ah, bats. There we
Right.
go.
So what we're about to see here, to just to bring us up to speed with the story, this 3D model you see in front of you is the reflection of the Black Rock Dome that has encircled the castle, right? And so by manipulating it, the idea is that somehow you'll be able to break the power of the Black Rock that imprisons you, and we'll find in a moment that different faces of the gem will take you to different worlds. Though only certain select worlds at first. There may be one that's is it always the prison tower at first? I forget.
Yeah.
So you can see the faces sort of light up, and like that's the hot spot on the Black Rock gem. There's one that's lighter than others. We are in the sewers.
We should explore the sewers.
That's true. Since it would be a shame not to look around the sewers and let all of Dorian's work go to waste.
That's all right.
One thing nice I'm noticing about the design of the sewers is that they're much more three-dimensional spaces. They've got soaring ceilings and kind of diagonal walls and stuff, which is a nice change in pace from the castle, which is all rectangular corridors and rooms. Was that? Do you remember what your intent was? Oh, there's a nice waterfall too. Do you remember what your intent was in designing the
I certainly
space?
wanted to make it like kind of. I wanted this. Yes, I wanted the spaces to be a mixture of wide open and kind of soaring, and then some, more narrow places, which I hopefully will get to at some point. But yes, I wanted it to as you say, feel different than the castle, since you've just been wandering around the castle for a while. And I wanted it to feel wet, so I looked for places to put water textures and those kind of glistening rock textures and waterfalls and such. The sewers ought to be wet.
Of course, while Chris gives us technological credit for animating textures, that just means that we fooled him. What's really going on with both the fireplaces and the waterfalls is that the color palette is animating,
Oh, really?
and the texture is not.
All right. Well, then Doom had one up on you.
All right. So, but for certain effects, that was kind of standard operating procedure in those days. As you can still see the next time you fire up your SNES or your Sega Genesis. Oh, and Will is not going to get killed by ghosts before he can even start his adventure. That's a little prediction I can give you.
And so here's the more claustrophobic areas that
Right.
Dorian was just talking about.
Right.
And back to
And then,
Swim. Dive in.
that's right.
Something that I still don't, I think that swimming was also something that none of the other 3D games had done, did for several years after this.
I
Some
love
nice
hiding
plant
in-
life and a scroll. You have to pick up everything. It's a role-playing game.
Yeah, you'll quickly find yourself pretty burdened with junk and do that though.
I might need this someday.
A bone, a broken mace.
One of the things that for me, when you look at these older games, because there was no standards yet, is sort of like looking at first and second generation automobiles. It's like the craft work that went into the inventory system compared to the way we do it nowadays. With the chain that you pull down and all that. These are the kind of things of like that craftsmanship just doesn't exist anymore. Right? We go with a very utilitarian style.
Chris, you trying to say we did the Model T of games here?
Well, I was gonna go more like '57 Chevy, but
The classic.
We need more chrome bits.
more chrome bits. Well, I mean, you could say the bead moss around the edges. Maybe that's the dungeon equivalent of chrome.
I can't remember. Are the waterfalls just animating textures on solid wall like everything else, or could you go? My 20-year-old memory is trying to remember if you could go behind them or not, like if they were permeable.
So I think that we might have done that yeah, there was a case. I'm pretty sure that there was a case where we did that. The way that it was done is we actually had one of the 3D models we had was just a quad, like a big
Aha,
square you could texture,
I knew it. There we
right?
go.
And by having one of those with the water texture on it that you could go through, because it had no physics, right?
Yep.
So you plastered that over a hole in a waterfall, and you had a bit of the waterfall that you could actually go through.
Which I remember doing, and I guess I was right since the
Yep,
our
I think
driver just did it.
we just saw it.
So
So
So is there current in these waters?
Each section of water could have a current ascribed to a direction and I think a strength, maybe?
I don't remember.
Or I don't know if it was strength or not, but there was definitely current that could be applied by the designer. So you could get swept downstream if the current pulled you that way.
Oh, got some more loot here. Your search of the sewers has proven fruitful. So all that time that Dorian spent hiding loot just for his own entertainment is now becoming our entertainment.
that's good. And these little tableaus, like the skull with the bones around it, like I don't know if there had been much. how common a practice that was at the time. But that was just a